Hello, folks. Welcome to How to End Racism, Clash 1, Lesson 1.
Wait, no, that's not a good start.
You might think this is a bit of a tall claim to say that we have figured out how to end racism. There will be no more racism by the end of this segment, ever again. It's good to know, I'm sure.
I don't want you to get rid of my racism. I like my racism.
Well, we've got all the highest, biggest brain left-wingers in the world. They've all come together at theguardian.com and they've told us how to finally end racism. And all we have to do is they say, and it'll be gone forever, because no one's left-wing ideas have ever destroyed the world.
Is it them just saying, don't be racist?
No, they're actually arguing that if we're more racist, it will come full circle, and racism will be gone.
Will it also involve destroying English culture?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, that goes without saying.
But thinking of some big brain left-wing ideals, we'll start off with just mentioning there is a book club on the website, so this is the final installment of the Frank Dakota trilogy on Maoist China.
That was in complete wrong order, but...
Yeah, this is the first book in the three... whatever. So it's...
in the final of the trilogy, Callum covers the first book of the trilogy.
So do go and check it out. It's free for a small time being, so go do that before it runs out of time. Otherwise, we shall look at the greatest left-wing minds of our time who have all come together to solve this problem. Now, they might not have a good track record of solving such problems, such as previous examples. Only 10 million dead in that book.
Can they stop using this art style? I hate it so much.
We shall load up the article Harry's already moaning about, and we have the title. What one change would you make to achieve black equality in Britain? Our panel writes.
That's a very dangerous question.
Yeah, remember... Before we go forward, we are going through black equality is their definition of ending racism here. Now, what does that actually mean? It will mean that black people, in their totality, in all statistical analysis, will have exactly the same outcomes, interests, jobs, wealth, anything on every level will be exactly the same as every other racial group. Presumably the number of white people within the black community will be equal to the number of white people in the white community, by that definition. Because this is the thing, equality is pointless.
So if we want equitable treatment, we'll need an equitable distribution of N-word passes as well.
That too.
So we'll have to sign up for one.
No one suggests that in here, but we'll go through their suggestions, because remember, we're not big brain left-wingers like these people. So we're just talking nonsense, whereas they have the facts. Such as one left-wing big brain individual, Lenny Henry. Okay, wasn't expecting that. We need radical empathy, not racial sympathy, he writes. Over the years, I have argued for a number of policies to increase racial equality in media, from a diversity tax break to be ring-fenced for funds for marginalised production companies.
Wait, is he just saying that blacks don't pay taxes? Is that his suggestion?
No, the blacks shouldn't pay taxes. Only blacks in media companies, though.
Oh, okay.
So privileged black people.
Oh, all right.
Bourgeois black people should not have to pay tax. They should have tax breaks.
For
being black in media.
Okay,
I don't know how that's going to end racism, but we'll keep with it. He also says, I've even helped set up a Centre for Media Diversity at Birmingham City University to not only research, but to advocate for better policies. So a racist lobbying group is what he set up. So we got tax cuts for rich black people in media, and set up racist lobbying groups.
We need to fire more white people.
Okay.
The English film industry needs to have no English people in it.
It's an argument to ending racism. He says here, simply put, there is no silver bullet when it comes to racial equality, but at the core of everything we're fighting for is the need to better understand each other and our different perspectives and values, which is why you're fired for being white. We must get past simple racial sympathy, just feeling sorry for victims of racism. You don't, you're happy to have them gone, and move towards radical empathy, putting yourself in the shoes of someone who isn't like you and trying to experience what they are going through is perhaps the answer to this age-old question, he writes. Yes, Lenny, imagine being told, for example, that you can't have this job because you're white. Imagine what that might do to a young white guy who was born during Tony Blair's sake. I just want to bring back to, you remember that image where you have like the little Japanese girl and it's like blaming her for Pearl Harbor, is like blaming this little white girl for slavery? And you remember, this is what all this is based upon. It's like, well, there were past injustices, so we must have this guy.
That means that it's your fault somehow.
I know he was born during Tony Blair's reign in office, but basically responsible for slavery.
Is this just you?
No, but this has happened
Oh, right.
to a lot of people. And
Well, to be fair, before I got massively red-pilled and I was applying for positions and apprenticeships at a BBC, it was something that you found quite often, just like a diverse entrance will be preferred.
yeah,
There you go.
Being racist against applicants, tax cuts for rich black people in media, and setting up a racist lobbying group. I'm not convinced by that one. I think Lenny's not hit the mark with that proposal. Before we go further, I just want to step off for a moment and just take a look at diversity in media
Oh, I remember this.
that Lenny Henry is so adamant about. This is in adverts. If anyone's wondering, if you watch British adverts, you may come to the conclusion that about a third of Britain is black and maybe a fifth is Asian, etc. Being Pakistani. No, it turns out. And the reason you might have that perception is from the data. This is Channel 4, well-known far-right outlet. They decided to look at people in adverts. They write here, representation of different ethnicities has remained flat despite a perceived increase following BLM movement and racism education. Some brainwashing since that. Well, what's happened? So we have 37% of TV ads in the UK feature black people, despite being 3% of the population.
That's a new despite.
37% of the ads feature black. Okay, it's a bit of an overrepresentation, but what is that? 1,000%?
Yeah, but it's not good enough though, Callum.
No, it's not.
It's just not good enough.
No, we need tax breaks for those people because they're in media. 15%.
Oh yeah, that's what we need. We just need to fill the industry full of them and then not tax them as well. Okay, all right.
Yes. 50% of TV ads feature South Asian people, so this is Pakistani and Indian, despite being 7% of the population, so that's 200% overrepresentation right there. 8% of TV ads feature East Asian people, this being Chinese, etc., despite being 1% of the population. That's a huge overrepresentation again, except you'll notice one of these groups doesn't endlessly whine about such socialist things as racial equality. You never get articles talking about how the Chinese are being kept down by the white supremacist patriarchy, blah, 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 of the UK. It's funny that. So it's almost like the Orientals know the dangers of socialism. But back to our race gurus, who have something to tell us. We have Dr. Kojo Kuram, who teaches at the School of Law in Birkbeck, University of London. Very prestigious law school. Very hard to get in, so he must be a big brain leftist to come and tell us this.
And judging by that picture, he's got a pretty big skull for a pretty big brain.
He's come here to tell us what is the solution to black equality within the UK. The easiest change, he writes, we could make to undermine structural racism would be to change our drug laws. The current system of criminalising drug possession and supply has been a conveyor belt that feeds young black men into the criminal justice system. Yeah, it's a crime to have drugs and sell them. So if we get rid of that...
Listen, there is an easy solution. Just be smarter about how and where you do drugs.
He says it starts with stop and search. So his solution for black equality is to stop arresting black people for having drugs.
Well, it's
Pretty racist.
I mean, the idea is
for one thing.
The idea is stop racial profiling, but the thing is, racial profiles come about for a reason.
Well, it's not even that. The Metropolitan Police, who are the ones accused of this, are the wokest police force on planet Earth. They go out of their way to not do such things.
And yet they're still
the
pure
ones...
happenstance.
It's because it's not about the race of the person they're searching. It's about where the person is, how, guilty they look when they're shoving around, sweating, being like, don't talk to me, and also smelling of marijuana is also a pretty big giveaway of someone in the possession of drugs. A fifth of all arrests of black people, he writes, result from stop and search. Okay, stop dealing drugs.
The funny thing is that...
You can't be arrested if you don't have any drugs on you.
Well, yeah, I mean, the funny thing is, like you say, the smelling of marijuana will probably get them to stop and search you. But if you do just have, like, a tiny little bit on you, they'll probably just give you a slap on the wrist and go away, whatever.
Yep.
It's if you have the harder, more criminal stuff on you that you're really in trouble.
Or an amount that a dealer might have.
Perhaps.
But there's also just, even if, we'll assume for a minute, we'll take it, your point, that the wokest police force on Earth are actually all secret Klansmen. They just hate black people. Whenever they see them, they're like, I'm going to stop and search him. Why? Because he's one of them. Okay, that's reality in which you live, Mr. Law Professor. In which case, why are they still able to arrest lots of black people for drug possession if they don't have any drugs on them? No, they do have the. That's the reason
Every
they're
single
arrested.
time they must be planted. Every single time.
Anyway, black people are then more likely to be prosecuted if arrested, and be convicted if prosecuted, and imprisoned if convicted of drug crimes. Yeah. You know what else that rule applies to? Any Caribbean nation. It's funny that. It's. I don't know why Jamaica would be so white supremacist as to also have the same pattern as we do. It's almost like there are differences within communities, and therefore certain communities might be, engaged in certain crime more than others, and others engaged more in their crime than the previous group.
Well, I mean, what's the percentage of black representation in adverts in Jamaica? We need to find this out. It's for research.
I thought we'd just have a side note. We'll also check in on the prison population whilst he's bringing it up. Nothing you might not know. We have here, this is the newest data. This came out, I think, 6 days ago. This is the newest data we have. The BAME population is overrepresented in the prison population, just like the adverts. The prison population, 27% of those identify as an ethnic minority compared to 13% in the general population. Interesting. We have the two biggest outliers in overrepresentation here. We have the white population of the prison, which is 72% of the prison.
We're underrepresenting, though. Look.
Meant to be 88% of the population, so...
We need to pump those numbers up, boys.
White people not committing enough crime, whereas black or black British overrepresented by quite a margin.
And that's the kind of criminal ethic you want to see in the white community.
You just to solve those numbers, perhaps. If we go to the next one here, we can actually see the more interesting graph is not race. Race is not very interesting for the British context. Instead, it's religion. Far more disproportionate in the numbers. Muslim prisoners have increased from 8% of the population of prisoners in 2002 to 17% in 2022. And the last data we have for them is they make up 4% of the country.
And let's be fair as well, that's after the police consistently cover for them.
Yes, we have that in many such an example. The Christians not committing crime.
Not committing enough crime.
No. The Hindus also committing no crime. Very sad. We need racial equality. Remember.
Very sad, very sad.
Because when you say racial equality, the goal is that the numbers match, Mason. They must line up. My spreadsheet must be correct.
What do they mean, Mason?
So the fact that the Hindus aren't committing any crime, 0% of the population, rounded to the nearest percent, but 2% of the population, the solution is more Hindu crime, less Muslim crime, and more Christian crime, and less atheist crime. I see you, gaytheist. I'm joking, I'm an atheist too, but still, it's just the fact that, the atheists are disproportionately committing crime as well. That needs to be stamped down on. But back to the race gurus, because that guy didn't seem to give us much to work on either, it turned out. We have a Lola Oaklus. Look, it's a foreign tongue. My tongue can't do that.
Okolosi.
Yeah, sure.
I assume.
Is an English teacher and writer focusing on race, politics, and education and feminism. Local unemployed woman is what that should read.
Local useless woman.
She writes, in English schools, the stories and contributions of black people have either been erased or reduced to a history of capture and conquest. For our education to be truly equitable, we need our government to follow the lead of its Welsh counterpart and mandate the English curriculum be diversified to reflect and incorporate the experiences of black and minority communities. When it comes to brainwashing kids in school, they either take the two tracks that are either the blacks have been completely vital in every element of English history until they get to the whole colonization part, at which point it is only capture and conquest that they want to talk about. There's that. She ended off with, until it does so, black children remain at the mercy of an insidious feedback loop. I don't know what on earth she's saying. So the English curriculum currently tries to reflect the historical reality and not the narrative in your head, the voices in your head, maybe I should say. And that's a problem because it's a vicious feedback loop in which black kids look at the Celts, for example, and don't see any black Celts.
It's almost like their ancestors come from a different place than England and Scotland.
Just to remind ourselves, it's not unlike the fact that the British Broadcasting Corporation, the state propaganda arm, has tried to do this. We have here Life in Roman Britain from BBC Teach. 8,000 dislikes on that one.
Average Mediterranean man right there.
This is in Britain, it's meant to be, this chap, the black guy, and the argument being that, well, the Roman Empire spans all
was English, bruv.
Well, no, it's more the argument that this guy could be a Numidian mercenary sent to England. There's no record of that. But the voice
But
is
he
in my
could
head.
have been, though.
The voice is in my head. Right, Sir Lola. Tells me something else happened. We also have Black Celts, of course. This is Boudica resisting the Romans before they arrived. Well, when the Romans were there, I should say. In which case, we have Boudica's warriors, including Jamal. Yep.
Just out of shot is Lakeisha.
If we go to the next one here, we have Iron Age Britons as well. The local Iron Age blacksmith there from Numidia.
That's just soot. That's just soot, obviously, from being at the forge all day.
No. Black people are vital to all of British history. From all points in all times and all places, there were black people in all of British history. Which is why, when, I believe it was Henry III or whatever, there was a black guy who turned up to Britain. And because he was black, he was made a member of the king's court, and his only job was to blow a trumpet. Because the king
he
found
was
it...
just there.
Well, the king just found him funny. It was just really interesting to have a black person around. Because, funnily enough, they weren't common.
we don't get many of you.
Yeah, so there's a
The
very...
BBC begs to differ.
There's a very famous mural or whatever of this guy
I've seen this.
blowing his horn, and I'm sure he had a great time. There's no mistreatment or anything. But the point being that this guy was of such note that not only was he made a member of the king's court,
Just for being there.
there's like murals of this guy just because he was there. And funnily enough, that might tell us that black people were quite rare in English history until, I don't know, England turned up in Africa perhaps and set up our colonies. I know that historical reality might not vest with Lola's voices in her head, but anyway...
Nah, mate, we was Brits.
I don't think that's going to solve racism either, Lola, just making up reality. Back to the race gurus. We have one more that might be able to help us, Diane Abbott. Oh, God. Diane Abbott, make our politics anti-racist. Oh.
Which basically means give me more money.
Well, what is Diane going to say? It's never something normal. Britain has its first ever Prime Minister of colour. Shut up, you American. No one uses that phrase here. Rishi Sunak's ascent to the top position in British politics is noteworthy. Okay. It's not to me.
He's going to be rubbish. I don't care.
But when it comes to race equality and politics, representation is only part of the equation, she writes. That's an amazing sentence. Being at the top of society is only part of the equation. Non-whites being successful is not enough for non-whites to be free in England.
Well, yeah,
to be able to get any point in British society, any position of power, that's not enough for racial equality.
Of course, what they're saying is that he needs to be a representative of the Indian consciousness, like the racial consciousness.
Not even that, because she's arguing it's about racial equality. Her spreadsheet doesn't match up. That's unironically the socialist complaint. There are literally no barriers to a person with brown skin becoming as successful as they wish in England, but that's not important, writes Diane Abbott. The important bit is my spreadsheet that doesn't accurately represent the people. Okay.
Oh, and she throws out the austerity word to really freak out all of the Guardian readers as well. Fantastic.
Yeah. More important is whether the political system is prepared to acknowledge institutional racism and do something about it. What if there isn't any, Diane? What if we did multiple studies about it and found none? What if we were in such a system that ethnic minority overrepresentation in positions of power was the reality, and in which case it would be really weird to try and call that a systemically racist system against them? No, that's where we live. So that doesn't make any sense either. The austerity he desires will impact black and brown Britons hardest, more than anyone else. Cutting government spending is going to hurt people with brown skin. Thing is, this is on the base of it true, but I don't think Diane's ever looked at another spreadsheet other than hers, because here we have percentage of households in average weekly income bands by ethnicity. You'll notice that, yeah, at the bottom, you've got Pakistani at the very bottom for the high earners, then Bangladeshi, and then people with black skin. And then you have white British below the average as well. But at the top there, you have Indian and Chinese, the Indian-Chinese super race, unironically dominating British society, and honestly, just by being based.
John just shaking his fist in triumph over there.
Yeah, unironically. Don't feel ashamed about it. None of feel ashamed
You're
of.
only second place, though, John.
I mean, Rishi Sunak seems to have been promoted on the basis of his race, which is cringe, but the Chinese, certainly not. I've never seen a position in which the Chinese are being discriminated in favour of.
John v. Ranveer when?
Well, we'll see it. Anyway, but if we go to the next one, we have who actually benefits from all this. Obviously, just being the fact that it's
This
Indian
degenerate.
Chinese. But we have other erased gurus. We have someone who came out and said encourage black creatives. I don't know.
How are we not? How are we not?
In theatre, I want to see more black creatives. Given the opportunity to create in a way that is not limited by what we called black work.
I mean, literally, just look at Brixton in London. The black creatives are diversifying by also being criminals. It's incredible.
Well, she says in theatre, she's talking about this, not some joke. And she's saying she wants black creatives to be given more funding in the theatre to do non-black work. Now, lady, next image, please. I don't know if you've seen it. This... Typically,
this was not considered a black role historically.
You use the term black work, like midget work or something. Like midgets usually play roles of like leprechauns or elves or something. And black people usually play roles for black people in historical dramas, for example.
You're right. Actually, that's a massive weak point in equity. We need to get midgets represented playing Andre the Giant in the new biopics.
That is also unironically what we are looking at. The argument being, which is you should be able to play anything you want. Well, I look forward to the big friendly giant being played by that guy who hung around with Carl Pilkington, whose name I've forgotten right now.
Warwick Davis.
There
you go.
Anyway, we'll move to the race.
That would be funny. I'd watch that.
That would actually be. Hey, that's actually quite a funny thing to do for a play now I think about it.
No, it's especially funny because Warwick Davis, even among midgets, is especially small.
Yeah, but
he's got a special condition.
But my point being, it would be kind of subversive and anti-woke to make a play in which all the characters are obviously cast just wrong. Like the giants played by a midget, and the small characters are played by giants.
We have me playing the Woman King.
Yeah, like all the guys are in drag, all the women play men.
Yeah.
Like, why not? Yeah. It would be funny. Anyway, back to the race gurus, because that one didn't work either. I don't think that's going to end racism. Yes, one guy says, treat children as children, not suspects. It's amazing that Chinese kids never complain about that, but anyway. There's another guy comes up with, black history is history, teach it all year round. Look, we've seen your grip on history. Their voices in your heads, so I'm not going to trust you with that.
Well, I mean, I'm not entirely against that, if only because it's like, well, if it's relevant.
No, teach history all year round.
That's the thing. If it's relevant to the history that's already being taught all year round, then bring it up.
If the history is relevant to the history, then I think it's valuable. But if the history is relevant to the voices in your head that tell you that there were black Celts fighting with Boudicca against the Romans, no. If you're wondering, that guy there, he's not a nobody either. He's a member of the House of Lords. Very, very big brain on that one. The next comment, we have someone saying, make space for black Britons in the art industry. I don't know if you could be more bourgeois. I mean, this lady here looks bourgeois as hell anyway, for people listening, but this is your concern. More black Britons in the arts industry. That'll end racism.
Do we need to refer back to the Channel 4 advert breakdown?
Yep. She writes, 1980s house clubs that were once almost exclusively black are now dominated by white punters.
You made it too inclusive.
What's the problem? You don't...
Surely this is the diversity you're asking for.
No, literally the argument is that I don't like white people.
Well,
I'm moving on. I don't think she's
obviously they don't.
But I don't think she's going to end racism either, so opinion disregarded. Someone else, they come up with an end to pernicious race science. She's from Decolonizing Contraception, this lady. She writes, the myth that our skin color makes us intellectual...
Wait, what? Decolonizing what?
Contraception.
What?
I don't know either.
Okay, all right.
A lot of her stuff just seems weird. She writes, the myth that our skin color makes us intellectually inferior and that those do succeed academically are a rare breed. The notion that black people are better suited to physical jobs. And I'm just thinking to myself while reading that, who are you hanging out with? Who thinks like this?
She's there with Richard Spencer.
Yeah, she's been hanging out with Richard Spencer every day. It's like, don't you know there are all these myths that black people are this, black people are that? It's like, maybe in your circles. Not for me, but whatever. Someone else writes...
I mean, I will say, this breakdown, this article, is not lending credence to the opposite of that argument.
I'm not thinking that we're going to actually solve racism by the end of this.
Sadly, this article is not bringing their best, these drooling morons.
No, these people are bad representatives. Someone else comes up with a new chapter for black Britons in publishing. Yeah, we'll get the next link for this. I don't think we need any more leg ups in the idea of diversity hires to tell us about why white people are bad. for
And
one.
there's that book as well by Akala, which I see all the time whenever I go into Waterstones. It's called Natives, and it's just him whining about people being mean to him when he was growing up.
But Cambridge-educated elites telling us about how the world is terrible for them. I mean, that's what I mean. This whole list is unbelievably bourgeois. I don't think they realise that the people writing in this, because they just live bourgeois lives and they think this is all life is. Whereas, the rest of us are actually dealing with reality. Back to the gurus. One of them says, make Britain's buildings reflect our diverse communities.
We need the Wakanda structures. Build mud huts into the side of skyscrapers. Do it.
Well, given the time of day, what the hell do you mean? He writes, given my Nigerian heritage, the UK's...
I'm very used to being in buildings made of manure.
Well, but that's not even true in Nigeria. So it's just like, well, the UK's colonial history is deeply personal to me. Look around our cities, and its ongoing legacy can be felt in every aspect of urban design, from street names to materials of the buildings we occupy. Yes, lad. Britain is British.
Yeah, he's just furious that our culture and heritage reflects the culture and heritage of the country.
I know this is a shock to the system to find out that Nigeria might be Nigerian too. I know it's awful. No, it's not. It's what you would expect. Anyway, he continues, to drive forward black equality in the UK, we need to reckon with these hard truths and take steps to foreground the voices of those who have historically been ignored. I don't know who he's talking about, presumably idiots like him, because I imagine he has been ignored in the past. Otherwise, it's not the case. There are plenty of black people working in architecture, if you're wondering, or on the councils that make these decisions, so it's not them. We need to invest time and resources in ensuring people from black communities have the tools to enter and succeed in a built-up environment sector. I don't know what that means. To create a future where all communities can thrive, we must be representative of the society we serve. I think he probably got paid to write 100 quid for this. I just decided to write nonsense. I don't know what any of that means. It doesn't tell me anything.
Good gig if you can get it.
Someone else comes up with, another guru, let's radically transform our punitive institutions. This is a lady from the police's National Race Action Plan. She writes, black communities are on the receiving end of the worst discrimination in many areas of society, but we are not a monolith. Indeed, you're not a monolith. If we break down those numbers from earlier of those in prison, funnily enough, it's not black Africans who are overrepresented in the prisons. It's not black Africans who are overrepresented in poor earners either. It's black Caribbeans. It's weird that. If you break down the ethnic groups, you actually get more information. But she writes, we need to prioritize welfare over punitive action and move away from labels that stick with people for the rest of their lives. She works for the police. She wants to not be punitive to criminals, but instead give them welfare. Cool. Someone else comes up with, allow black people to be mediocre too.
You don't need our permission. I mean, come on.
No, they do actually.
All right.
I'm very sorry to tell Athena here, but that was actually banned during the 1974 Stop Black Mediocrity Act that was passed by Parliament. It's a big shame.
The Uphold White Standards Bill.
There's just, she's arguing that black people are expected to be amazing at all times, all places. I'm like,
where?
It's the idea of black excellence, etc. Diversity.
Isn't it just black people who go on about that?
No, it's diversity wokists who endlessly make adverts saying that if you're a minority, you should be a CEO, you should be leading the country. She's actually moaning about woke propaganda.
I was going to say, actually, there's a little bit of a point there.
Which is quite funny. Someone else writes, celebrating ordinary black lives in films and books. Sorry, that's also a crime, so we can't do that. Shame. Respond, finally, to issues raised in the race reports. She lists all the leftist ones. Thing is, we actually investigated them, for people who don't know, in the UK. The government did. Found that all of the claims of systemic racism were completely unfound, so let's put that in the bin. Someone else comes up with, confront the Rule Britannia image of Britishness. Instantly, I'm hostile.
Piss
to whatever
off.
That is. But he writes, no number of black cabinet faces, whatever the party and however much they embody the optics of diversity, will ever change Britain. That's like, okay. He's almost there.
And this guy also just looks very angry and like he hates me, so I'd rather he just leave.
It's a weird profile picture, but he writes here that essentially diversity makes no advantage. Yeah, they're people just like you and me.
They've horseshoed back round, finally.
Someone else writes, I want to see black people dive into swimming. This is a real article. They published this.
We're keeping jumping, though.
Oh, yeah.
That's all ours.
I want to see discriminatory barriers that prevent people from taking part in opportunities in life broken down and washed away. Swimming has sadly been plagued by racist stereotypes and issues of accessibility, which have caused so many black people to never set foot in the water and take the first steps to learn to swim. Yeah, I am terribly sorry, but black people were stopped from swimming for all time in England because of the 1888 Ban Black People from Swimming Act, I think was passed.
That was my favourite one.
No, there was no law. There is nothing stopping black people from swimming. There never has been. Which is like, yeah, all those accessibility barriers.
I mean, it says there, she's a swimmer who represented Great Britain at the Tokyo Olympics. And, you know, congratulations for making it that far.
I know when you applied, they went, black person swimming.
Oh, don't know about that one.
We at the Olympic Committee don't want to see this.
I know. But, you know, you managed to get there. Congratulations. You must be an inspiration. And if representation is supposed to be all it's cracked up to be, surely just her being there and swimming at the Olympics means that there was a massive influx of black kids going swimming, right?
No,
that's how representation works, right? You do the thing and you get seen doing the thing, and then people do it.
She's done more than that. She has co-founded the Black Swimming Association,
and that's perfectly legal to do that.
But also, she says to do just that, we're trying to make sure that in swimming, equality becomes a reality for everyone.
That swimming is a competitive sport.
No, but ignoring that, just the idea that we're teaching people to swim. First and foremost, can you not swim with other people? What do you mean you've set up the Black Swimming Association? As if, like, you need that or something to get people to... Funnily enough, when I went to the swimming pool, learning to swim, there were people of different races, and we didn't decide to...
Well, you didn't shove them all in the corner?
No, we didn't set up a Black Swimming Association
weird.
where the black kids had to stay in the shallow end or something. Like, we just all got in the pool and learned.
Well, that was just because you were worried. I mean, obviously they can't swim. You best stay in the shallow end. Don't want to be too careful, can you?
No, but I love this. Just every one of these examples given is like, how do we end racism, folks? Well, what if we were more racist? Is every single one of these examples. And I'm arguing,
I love it.
What if you weren't racist? I know it's a radical policy, but just also swimming equality. You ever heard such nonsense?
Mate, if you end racism, they can't. They can't be racist against white people. So,
but it's the point of Jordan Peterson's made it endless times. The more and more attributes you try and equalize, the more difficult that task not only becomes, but the whole pursuit becomes more and more laughable as you try and equalize swimming equality amongst the races. Not to mention amongst height as well, I presume. We must have equal access and ability to swim, because if short people and tall people are not able to swim equal amounts, that shows that there's heightism against tall people.
You stay away from me. I see you eyeing up my height.
I could swim more than you. I've got the badges to prove it.
Yeah, well, I got an award from my hometown mayor.
That's pretty good, actually.
There you go.
Didn't copy that. Never mind. All right, yeah, short people, rise up. Take it from the talls. But it's also just, to actually end racism, what we've learned from this is you need to abandon equality. Unironically, that is my message from all of this. Because these people all decided, they were like, we're going to end racism by instituting equality, which means that we must do it by being more racist. Funnily enough, setting up a black-only swimming club is not how you end racism. That's the lesson I've learned.
Yeah, I mean, for me, if you want to do that, you know, okay. But
not okay.
Don't pretend that you're ending racism.
Stop being racist. Get in the pool with the rest of the kids. The hell are you guys doing? They're like, yeah, but we're starting at the Black Panther swimming club. I was like, no, you're 13. Get in the pool. If you appreciated that segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content we have on the site, such as the premium articles we do, this one on the re-emergence of the totalitarian leftists, and an audio track for silver and gold tier members, of course. If you'd like to check out what else we're putting out, you can follow us on Getter at lotuseaters_com on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.